I want to start with you, Holland, on this, because I actually liked that Attorney General was answering questions by members of both sides of the aisle. I think this is actually a way of holding accountable the DOJ to different issues. Now, sure, he can't answer on some things, but do you think this might actually be a good thing moving forward that possibly we should do regardless if there's a controversial issue specifically drawing him to the Hill?
Well, let's not grind everything to a halt for the sake of gotcha questions. I feel bad for then Judge Garland, who was robbed of a seat he may eventually get on the Supreme Court, because his unflappable demeanor today with this rude Jordan interruption act just makes him seem like the kind of sober jurist we would want on the court. I didn't watch the whole thing either, but I saw pieces of it and I've read some of the transcript, and he seemed fairly unflappable and proper about doing his job.
Well, and that's, and that's actually what you want. I agree with you. You want to have somebody. But Malik, from your perspective, as you were watching it, did today go exactly what the Democrats were hoping it would go as? Because a lot of issues were brought up that you don't necessarily hear about on mainstream news. You hear about it on memes as well as a part of on Twitter and social media. That's where it's getting some sort of traction. Did today go exactly what they were looking for when they first wanted to base this committee?
No, not at all. And, for the most part, the AG answered questions. And as you said, this is something that he should do. And it really is something that he did even going back with the congressional hearings that they were had before the select committee. But I think what Democrats want to do, they really want to nail down on not just pushing the Department of Justice to investigate or to work with local areas when it comes to what's happening with the school districts around and parents are protesting, but also January 6th. I think there's going to be a lot of attention paid to January 6th and the idea that Bannon declined to show up for its subpoena. We kind of knew that's something that was going to happen anyway. But I think it's pretty much a wash as far as what it eventually came out. Despite whatever Democrats' expectations were, this ends up as a wash.
Well, and that's the thing, as you're watching this, and we've watched different hearings in committee happen, and sometimes you need popcorn, others are just you're bored to death. On this case, though, Holland, do you actually feel like Steve Bannon was going to appear in front of the committee? Do you think Democrats realistically thought he would show up? And if he did, what do you exactly think would have happened?
If I were Steve Bannon, I would flee while I still have a passport, because the tape doesn't lie. On January 5, he's on talk radio, and this tape is being played plenty this week, saying, tomorrow, all hell is going to break loose. And on Twitter, we're seeing pictures shot inside the war room at the Willard. There is Rudolph Giuliani within arm's reach of the Help Yourself bar, and various others that we'd like to hear more from. How can we let January 6th stand without getting to the bottom of it?
Well, and that's the thing, and that's the focus that this was supposed to be about, Malik, but that's not what we heard about from the majority of the testimony. That was actually a very small part. It actually gave the platform for people on the right, representatives from the right, to bring out a whole other host of issues going, what about the double standard? How did you see today talking about January 6th? And is Steve Bannon, would he actually be treated fairly and respectfully if he did show up to one of these hearings as he's been called for?
Yeah, well, to your last point, there is no such thing. Gone are the days where there's a respectful dialogue or even during testimonies, whether Democrats are in power or Republicans are in power, no one is nice anymore. That's pretty much gone. I think Democrats wanted more out of this, but at the same time, realizing that there's not a lot of there. The FBI itself, not Malik Abdul or not you, Scotty, the FBI said that 90% of the cases that they've actually charged or investigated thus far, of those who have been charged, over 90% of them, they're actually being charged with crimes like entering the Capitol or entering a federal building without permission and things like that. There aren't these, definitely not murder, but some of these charges that Democrats are saying, I think they really want to make more out of this, and they're hoping that somehow Steve Bannon himself is attached to it. But the FBI itself said that it has thus far hasn't found any information linking Trump or anyone in his orbit to helping to coordinate what happened on January 6th. That's something that's really being lost in the discussion, but it actually is something that the FBI has already reported on, that they found no coordination. So will the select committee find more than what the FBI is finding? I doubt it, but we'll see.
But we're still getting the news headlines, sort of like what we saw from the first and the second impeachment of Donald Trump. This kind of rings about the same of people going into it. But in this case, Holland, you are seeing members bring up questions regarding Hunter Biden's business. We're also, like I said, we saw Merrick Garland's son's business and the ties. Is that proper? Is this the proper place for those questions to be asked? Do those representatives have the right to ask those questions when they have nothing to do with January 6th, which was why this whole group gathered in the first place?
Well, about the 6th, this story's still in the early innings. If Hillary Clinton can sit still for 7 hours of this Benghazi fiasco, I think we still have a little more investigating to do. So far, is what the FBI said. In terms of this fascination with Hunter Biden, once upon a time, there was a Donald Nixon, and a few years later, there was a Billy Carter. Nobody ever runs for the presidency by himself. You can't pick your relatives. As far as Hunter Biden goes, the U.S. attorney in Delaware is still on the case. That was seamless through the presidential transition. Durham has been funded. Let it play.